The number one question I'm getting is the housing market going to crash in 2025? With the looming election, whether Trump or Harris wins, whether you're blue or red, whether you're a Crip or a Blood, no matter what side of the fence you're on, everyone cares about their own personal money and their own personal finances. And for most people, their finances are tied to their house. Like if their house is worth extra money on Zillow, for some reason, they think they're balling out of control. The reality is your house value is only matters if you're going to do a transaction, you're going to buy a house, you're going to sell a house, or you're going to refinance your house. But I wanted to prepare because I personally am an investor. So I have a long-term rental in Paris, California. I have an Airbnb in Canada, and I have my personal family residence that I will probably never sell because the loan on that house is at a 2.69% rate. And that rate is actually worth more than the house. I say this to try to figure out exactly how the supply and demand curve could be impacted next year. And I wanted to look at some differences between what happened in Trump's housing economy between 2016 and 2020, and then 2020 to 2024 during the Biden administration. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. I'm gonna just give you some data points. So stay with me because I'm going to give you a solution at the end that's pretty unconventional. So check this out. When Trump took office in 2016, mortgage rates were sitting about 3.41 at the lows, and he hit a high of 4.94 in 2018. Now, the lowest rate he got was post-pandemic when the feds basically said borrow free money because we want to stimulate the economy. And that was at 2.66 in 2020. Coincidentally enough, my mortgage is on a $500,000 loan, has a $2,700 payment, and is sitting at a 2.69. So you can only imagine how much lower interest rates were, and that really stimulated an economy. It actually led to 2021, where the most originations in the history of mortgages was ever originated. $4.5 trillion of mortgages were originated between refinances and purchases, and that's because you were sitting at rates between 2 and 3%. But what happened is you had ridiculous inflation, house prices exploded. I mean, I was in the market and people were offering 100,000, 200,000 over list price in order just to get into a house. And so I want to compare how the houses appreciated between 2020 and 2024. So stay with me here. In 2020, when rates were at 2.66, the median price in America, meaning how much the average price was going for, you're scrolling through Zillow, how much a house was going to be listed for, was $383,000. That honestly sounds like not even believable because that was only 4 years ago. And so, I wanted to see, so what would the payment be? So I think most people buying at that price point are buying with an FHA loan. So I priced out a home of $383,000 with 3.5% down at a rate of 2.66 with taxes and insurance, assuming California tax rate. The monthly payment was $2,175. Now that's super low. Like I don't even know if you can get that in today's era anywhere in the United States. Definitely not in Southern California. But what is very interesting, and this is probably the most important part of this video, is what it took to qualify for that mortgage. Meaning, how much did you need to make every month in order to qualify for a $2,200 payment? What's $5,000 a month? Based on FHA guidelines, using a 46% housing ratio, a $5,000 a month or $60,000 a year salary, you were able to qualify for a home based on the average price point. So I took it one step further and I was like, well, how does that compare to what the average American was making in 2020? And this is astonishing. In 2020, the average American was making $55,628. That's only a $5,000 gap between how much you needed to qualify for an average priced home in America versus how much people were actually making. Meaning that people were able to afford houses in 2020 with an average salary. But that's not the fact today. That's definitely not the fact today. So let's look at what today's data comes into play. The average price for a house in 2024 is $501,000. Keep in mind that in 2022, it peaked out at $552,000. So you've had a drop of about 5% since 2022 when rates started creeping up into the 7s and 8s. Now, when this video is being shot, the average FHA rate for me personally is sitting at 6.25%, assuming a 640 FICO or better. So I wanted to calculate the monthly payment on $501,700. And with an FHA loan at 3.5% down, you're looking at a total monthly payment with taxes and insurance of $3,894. So guess what, guys? You would need to make $8,500 a month or $102,000 a year in order to qualify. But we took it one step further again. I wanted to know, well, has the salary increased as much as you need to in order to qualify? Like, is it still pretty comparable to the average salary needed to qualify to buy an average price home versus the average salary to buy in today's era? The average salary in 2024, according to an article posted by SoFi that tracks the Social Security data provided, both links are provided below. The average salary is $63,795. That is insane. That's a 7% increase in 4 years. But the delta between a payment of $2,175 and $33,894 is an increase in price by almost 80%. It's actually 79%. So you had home prices, and when I say home prices, the home monthly payment, because that's what people care about, increased by 80%, but you had the average American salary increase by 7%. Like, how does the math even math? And that's why you see a drop in how many originations were made between 2020 and 2024. We're on pace in 2024 to originate about 1.5 to 1.7 trillion dollars, which is about 30 to 40% of what was originated in 2020 and 2021. I mean, it's insane. So with all that being said, what's going to happen in 2025? Well, it doesn't matter that you have a shortage in supply. Like, the big argument for why people say that house prices will continue to rise is they keep saying that there's just no supply. And so because there's no supply, the demand is going to outweigh the supply. And so therefore, the supply is going to keep getting more expensive. But the problem is that people don't qualify for mortgages anymore. Like, we've seen mortgage applications just completely collapse since the Fed's cut rates, and our mortgage FHA rate went from 5.25% to 6.25%. I mean, we went from 10 applications, 15 applications a week, maybe down to 3 or 4. So if you can't have new people qualifying for homes, who's going to buy up the homes? State Street, Vanguard. I mean, you can get into conspiracy theories, but that's a whole nother video. But the average American needs to make $102,000 a year. They're short almost 80% in their salary in order to be able to qualify for a mortgage. So in 2025, is the market going to crash? I don't think it's going to crash because it's too close. I think what's going to happen is you're going to have a stabilization of prices. But I do think that if they don't cut rates and they don't take this solution that I'm about to present into effect, I do think you're going to start to see house prices start to come down just because it's so unaffordable to live. So ultimately, what would I do? I do think the rates are going to drop. The Fed rate's sitting at 5.5% right now. I think that when the Feds cut rates, they're going to cut 150 basis points between the end of 2024 and 2025, maybe even 200 basis points, which will get us down to 3.5%, which should bring mortgage rates into the 4.5 to 5% rate. And so if rates come down to 5%, you're still not going to have the ability to have the common folks buy the average priced home. So what you need to do is you need to stretch out the payments. It's a super simple solution. FHA is already testing this with loan modifications. They're going to deploy a 40-year mortgage. So here's the data. Right now, to qualify for an average price home of $501,000, you need to make $102,000. If the FHA rate comes down to 5% and they stretch out the payment to 40 years with taxes and insurance at a rate of 5%, you're looking at a monthly payment of $3,200. And so you would only need to make $7,000 a month to qualify. between you and your spouse, and that's $85,000 a year. And so that gap gets cut in half between what you need to qualify versus what the average American is making. And so as wages go up, they're going up right now at about 5 to 7% per year, and you stretch out the payments and you lower rates, you're gonna have this medium point where housing is gonna start to become more affordable. And then you'll go on another bull run where you'll see prices appreciate like crazy, especially as the Feds start to lower rates. And if we're able to ever do something about the US national debt to help offset inflation, then we'll really be off to the races and housing will absolutely explode. But comment below if you think the housing bubble is upon us and if it's gonna pop in 2025. And let me know what you think about those payment scenarios. Do you think that the mortgages are gonna go from 30 to 40 years? Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content and more info related to housing.